The CEO looked at her across the desk and said, "The hijab has to go. That's not negotiable." She looked back at him. And then she said something nobody in that building expected. "Let's go back to where this started." The CEO looked at her across the desk and said, "The hijab has to go. That's not negotiable." She looked back at him. 3 seconds of complete silence. And then she said something nobody in that building expected. "Let's go back to where this started." Sara had been the highest-scoring candidate in a pool of 214 applicants. The interview panel had used the word exceptional 3 times. The HR manager had called her personally on a Friday afternoon, which never happens, to tell her the offer was coming. She had worked for this for 7 years. 2 degrees. 4 internships. A master's thesis that her advisor had described as the best he had supervised in a decade. She had walked into James Whitmore's office on a Tuesday morning in her dark navy hijab and her black blazer with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly what they have built and is not afraid to show it. She had not expected what came next. But she was ready for it. She had been ready for it, in some part of herself. For a long time, James Whitmore had built his company from 11 employees to 1,100 in 18 years. He was not a cruel man. This is important to understand, because the most damaging things are rarely done by cruel people. They are done by people who have decided, without examining the decision, that the world works a certain way. James had decided, somewhere along the line, that professionalism looked like one thing, spoke like one thing, and did not include, in his unexamined framework, a dark navy hijab in a corner office on the 34th floor. He had said what he said the way people say things they believe are reasonable, without raising his voice, without malice, with the complete confidence of a man who has never been seriously questioned on anything in his own building. He would be questioned today. The hijab has to go. He had said it after sliding the contract across the desk. After pointing to the salary line. After telling her the team was looking forward to having her. As if it were a footnote. As if it were the kind of thing you mention between the parking policy and the health benefits. Sara looked at the contract. She looked at the line he had not pointed to, the one about professional appearance standards. She looked at James Whitmore. And she said, very calmly, "Could you help me understand what professional appearance means in this context?" He blinked. It was a small blink, the blink of a man who expected a different response and is recalibrating. "It means," he said carefully, "that client-facing roles require a certain consistency of presentation." "I see," Sara said. She opened her notebook. And she began to write. What Sara was writing was not a complaint. It was a date, a time, a name, and a direct quotation. She had been told, by a mentor she trusted, that the most powerful thing you can do in a room where someone is treating you unjustly is to document it. Not dramatically. Not as a threat. Simply as a record. Because injustice that is witnessed and recorded is a different thing from injustice that disappears into the air of a 34th floor corner office and is never spoken of again. She had written this advice in her journal 3 years ago. She had underlined it. She had not known when she would need it. She knew now. James Whitmore was watching her write with the expression of a man who has just realized, too late, that what he said out loud is different from what he thought he was saying. Sara closed her notebook. She looked at James Whitmore with the expression she had been practicing, without knowing she was practicing it, for 7 years. Not anger. Not hurt. Simply precision. "Mr. Whitmore," she said. "I'd like to share something with you. Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act prohibits employment discrimination based on religion. That includes religious dress and grooming practices. What you've described as a condition of this offer is, in its current form, unlawful." The room was very quiet. The HR manager Linda, who had been sitting in the corner making notes, had stopped making notes. James Whitmore had set his pen down. "I'm not," he began. "I know you're not trying to discriminate," Sara said. I'm giving you the opportunity to correct this before it becomes something neither of us wants it to become. Stay with what just happened. Because Sara did not raise her voice. She did not cry. She did not stand up and walk out, though she had every right to. She did something considerably more difficult than any of those things. She stayed in the room. She stayed precise. She gave a man who had just done something wrong the opportunity to do something right. This is harder than it sounds. It requires a particular kind of discipline, the discipline of someone who has decided that their dignity is not something that can be taken from them by a single sentence across a desk, because it was never located in what other people decide to give them. It was located somewhere else entirely. And James Whitmore, who had built a company from 11 people to 1100, was about to learn something that 18 years of business school had not taught him. James Whitmore was quiet for a long moment. Then he did what people in his position often do when they have been cornered by their own words. He tried to reframe. Look, this isn't about religion. This is about what our clients expect when they walk into a meeting. Sara nodded. I understand that's how you're framing it, she said. But the legal standard doesn't ask what the employer intended. It asks what the employer did. Another silence. Linda, in the corner, had put her pen down entirely. What would you like to happen here? James said finally. It was a different voice from the one that had said the hijab had to go. That voice had been certain. This one was asking a question. Sara looked at him. I'd like to accept the job, she said. In the hijab. Sara walked out of the building at 11:42 a.m. without a signed contract. She called David Chen from the lobby. David was her attorney, a quiet, precise man who had been practicing employment law for 22 years and had heard versions of this story more times than he could count. How did it go? He said. He said the hijab has to go, Sara said. I told him about Title VII. He reframed. I documented everything. A pause. Good, David said. I'll send a letter this afternoon. The letter arrived at James Whitmore's office at 3:15 p.m. It was 4 paragraphs. The first 3 explained, in specific legal language, exactly what had occurred in the meeting and what the applicable law required. The 4th paragraph was 1 sentence: my client remains interested in the position and looks forward to a lawful offer of employment. James Whitmore read the letter twice. Then he called Linda into his office and closed the door. What happened in that closed-door meeting between James Whitmore and Linda is not something Sara was present for. But its results were visible. The following morning, James Whitmore sent an email to all department heads announcing an immediate review of the company's appearance standards policy. He did not mention Sara's name. He did not mention Title VII. He simply said that the current policy required updating to reflect the company's commitment to an inclusive workplace. 3 days later, a revised offer arrived in Sara's inbox. Same position. Same salary. No conditions about appearance. She read it twice. Then she called her mother. Her mother, who had worked 2 jobs for 11 years so Sara could go to the university that had given her the degrees that had gotten her into that office on the 34th floor, listened to the whole story without interrupting. When Sara finished, her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Did you write it all down?" "Every word," Sara said. Her mother said, "Good. That's what I taught you." There is a version of this story where Sara accepts the condition, removes her hijab, takes the job, and tells herself it was a practical decision. There is another version where she walks out of the office immediately, never looks back, and calls it a victory. Sara chose neither version. She chose the harder one, the one that required staying in the room, staying precise, and giving a man who had done something wrong the specific, documented opportunity to do something right. She did not do this because she was certain it would work. She did it because it was true. And in her experience, in 7 years of building something that no one could take from her, truth, precisely applied, was the most durable material available. James Whitmore learned something that Tuesday morning that 18 years of building a company had not taught him. Sara already knew it. Her mother had taught her on a Tuesday morning too, a different Tuesday, many years ago, in a kitchen that was not a 34th floor corner office but contained, in its own way, exactly the same lesson, that who you are is not negotiable. And that the right answer to someone who tells you otherwise is not to leave the room. It is to open your notebook and begin to write.